disappointment, slowly entropy until we deflate into a pile of mush.
When Juicy J's bands fail to make her dance, and when there's truly nothing left for Gucci Mane to do, who will save us? Welcome to Rattling Hi-Hats, the hip-hop philosophy podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the very first official episode. I'm your host, Joshua Knoll, a SoundCloud rapper turned education major, dedicated to the study of philosophical issues in what has become arguably the largest musical, visual, and cultural movement of our time. Today's topic is hedonism and hip-hop, and first I'm going to have to hit you with a little bit of a history lesson to make sure we understand each other before we jump into how, where, and why we see such a prevalence of hedonism in the developed world's new favorite genre. The term hedonism originated in ancient Greece, though the practice itself definitely precedes the terminology, in which Aristippus of Cyrene, a pupil of Socrates, taught that the pursuit of pleasure was of utmost importance in living a fulfilling human life. This belief took multiple forms under his contemporaries, including the Epicureans, who sought what they called freedom from worry. In 146 BC, the Romans overthrew Greece, and obsession with pleasure plagued the empire. The Romans ruled for 6 centuries, and excess itself would come to take the blame for their eventual fall. The pursuit of wealth and pleasure has been a central theme for many hip-hop artists for a very long time, as has the flaunting of that wealth and pleasure once it's acquired. However, as rap song after rap song dominates today's music industry in ways fans in the 80s and early 90s couldn't have imagined, the most successful hip-hop artists have been able to achieve, and flaunt, levels of fame and riches that are completely unprecedented within their genre. The varying views successful artists have on this phenomenon are as diverse as those wielded by society at large. You have hip-hop artists who suffered during their struggle or who had to do exceptionally regrettable things to get where they are, but who believe that it all paid off. You have artists who are in the same situation but are constantly dissatisfied with the spoils of their actions and of their wild success. You have those who express that they don't feel they deserve the opportunities that have been given to them, as well as those who seem to believe wholeheartedly that they deserve all of it and so much more, that this must be their destiny. Now, if that sounds complicated or stressful, that's because it is, but it's something that any rational person in the position of these iced out titans has to consider. So why be rational? In 2016 and 2017, through the explosion of talent on decentralized platforms like SoundCloud and Bandcamp, a new kind of hip-hop artist has emerged, and he chooses not to worry about any of this. Instead, he revels in every moment of the struggle, every minute of the success, and every single second of the hustle. Meet Lil Pump. Born Ghazi Garcia in August of 2000, Lil Pump began rapping at the age of 16 in response to encouragement by a high school friend. Smoke Perp, a local producer who would soon become Lil Pump's Dr. Dre, crafted an instrumental and asked Garcia to freestyle over it with a headphone mic. This track was released independently on SoundCloud later on, titled Lil Pump, and was followed by an array of similarly improvisational songs, including Elementary, one of my personal favorites. Every single one of these tracks was played over 3 million times on SoundCloud alone. As a result, Garcia, now Lil Pump, gained recognition within the South Florida underground rap scene and was invited to perform as part of the 2016 No Jumper Tour. Once 2017 kicked off, Lil Pump released 2 more singles titled D-Rose and Boss. Together, these singles earned over 70 million streams. Again, that's SoundCloud alone. Each song now has a respective music video on YouTube, and those have both garnered tens of millions of views as well. In July, Lil Pump signed with the Lights Global and Warner Brothers Records. The following month, he released Gucci Gang, which would peak at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 3 months later, on November 8th. In the meantime, on October 6th, Lil Pump released his first commercial project titled, you guessed it, Lil Pump. Lil Pump has been called the king of repetition and has become known for simplistic rhyme schemes, off-putting, often Cards Against Humanity on Downers-esque, one-liners and ad-libs, and his ability to flex like ooh 24/7. It was previously hard to imagine Lil Pump without a hard-hitting Smoke Perp produced instrumental to back him up, but Pump has chosen to occasionally distance himself from that style with mellow, trap-influenced tracks like Gucci Gang. Lil Pump, now at 17 years of age, claims to be the youngest flexer, and though not much is known about his personal life growing up, he claims to have sold both methamphetamine and crack cocaine. Here's the instances in which he brings these activities up for context about his attitude towards these kinds of things.
Lil Pump still that meth. 100 on wrist, sipping on tag. Hey, y'all came up with a sauce. Damn, yeah, so crack in the halls.
Now, I understand that Pump may be exaggerating quite a bit here, but it's the attitude that matters. In reference to drug trafficking, he referenced himself as trapper of the century. The sale of illegal drugs is nothing new in the hip-hop world, but oftentimes it is seen as something done out of necessity, out of absolute desperation. It is often seen as a regrettable act that's just part of the hustle in making it as a hip-hop artist. Of course, Lil Pump is far from the only artist to undermine this, especially in recent memory, but again, it's about the attitude, even at a more specific level. When 21 Savage spits demented bars about murder and his struggle to make it out of the hood, his tone is implied by his name. Though sometimes deciding to take a more reflective, somber approach, Savage almost always presents himself as a cold-blooded killer, as one might expect from the leader of the Slaughter Gang. Now, the Migos, who we will talk about much more in the future, are notorious trappers born straight from the grid of North Atlanta. Although they often boast about their drug trafficking capabilities and tendencies in songs like Big on Big and T-Shirt, they haven't necessarily been afraid to open up about the dangers of the lifestyle of excess, drug abuse, and manipulation. In the third verse of sleeper hit Pick Up the Phone by Travis Scott, Quavo begs Percocet and codeine not to take his life away from him. Codeine is the very thing Pump is referencing in Gucci Gang when he says sippin' on tech, as tech is short for high tech, a pharmaceutical company known for producing promethazine and codeine, which are often combined in lean, or scissor, if you're old. Lil Pump can be cold at times, sure, but he's happy about it. He rolls around in his moral filth like a pig and smiles at the world through a flurry of pink dreadlocks. He presents himself as carefree as long as he is wealthy, and now he has become wealthy because he is carefree. People love Lil Pump. So do I. And why is that? Anthony Fantano of The Needle Drop described Lil Pump's music as something he can just go absolutely Neanderthal to. He brings something new to the table, something that popular music has perhaps been lacking throughout much of the 21st century thus far: comedy. Mike Powell addresses this problem wonderfully in a piece from his Second Hands column at Pitchfork titled Class Clowns. Mockingbird.com took the time to pull this story from the piece, which I'll use here because it illustrates his point in a powerful and even relatable way. Powell tells us, "The other afternoon I stopped into a bar and had a beer alone. When I asked about the soundtrack, the bartender told me they were going for a strip club vibe. The bar does not host strippers. Juicy J's Bands That Make Her Dance came on. It is a heavy, miserable song with a hole in the middle where someone seems to have scooped out its heart. Bored and joyless, Juicy throws his dollars at strippers with the wearied hand of a factory machinist. As the song's emptiness filled the room, I realized that never before have we as a culture been subjected to so much unhappiness perpetrated in the name of luxury and status. The rich not only get richer, but manage to make being rich seem less enviable all the time. That, of course, is its own type of gag. Drake could become a goat farmer in Hawaii tomorrow and live in splendor for the rest of his life. I like bands, but only because I think it says something important about our time. It is the sound of the palace at night, abandoned. It does seem like a song I should be hearing while day drinking alone, I told the bartender. He nodded." Mockingbird goes on to use Juicy J specifically as a representation of the shift in hip-hop discussed earlier in this episode, comparing the gritty roots of 3 6 Mafia to the dry joylessness of the middle-aged millionaire himself. Quote, "Juicy J's Bands That Make Her Dance was released in 2012 when he was 37 years old. A cold, misogynistic rap song, Bands became a major rap hit and was an unlikely comeback many years after his seminal work in Memphis rap group 3 6 Mafia. It also landed him surprising features on Kesha and Katy Perry songs. In 3 6 Mafia, Juicy J pioneered a militaristic flow detailing dark nihilistic street tales over menacing beats that sampled horror soundtracks. In the 90s, groups like Wu-Tang Clan, the Ghetto Boys, and 3 6 Mafia all channeled this dark underbelly of street life. The Mockingbird article goes on to discuss artists such as Future and Drake facing similar problems, and claims Gucci Mane's Ain't Nothing Else to Do set the precedent for this desperate boredom with material goods after dedicating one's life to acquiring said goods. The public's infatuation with this attitude is not sustainable, and artists like Lil Pump seem to present themselves as the solution to this. Despite the spotlight I've put on him for the majority of this episode, Pump is not alone in what he's doing. But he's still special. I mentioned earlier a lack of humor in modern music, and in rap specifically. This ties into the bored hedonism discussed in the Mockingbird article, but ultimately these can be seen as two separate issues. Tyler, the Creator, is a prime example of an artist challenging the comedy problem in a very literal way. making his Eric Andre-esque obscure humor such a prominent part of his persona that the rap group he founded, Odd Future, had its own television show on Adult Swim, Loiter Squad, just a couple of years ago. He literally puts humor into his work, often making himself the butt of the joke, while still finding fresh ways to remind his audience how highly he thinks of himself and of the empire he's built around his name. I could do a whole episode on the legacy of Tyler with a focus on the imaginative world-building strategies he uses in his music, visual art, and branding techniques, and I might, but that wouldn't belong here. Wikipedia is awesome despite what your high school teachers may have told you, and you should definitely read up on Tyler's transformation if you get the chance. But Lil Pump engages in similar antics at times, in a much more bare-bones slapstick kind of way. And even Tyler gets lonely, and even the creator gets bored. On Tyler's most recent album, Flower Boy, he reflects on his lifestyle and the emotional solitude he's trapped himself in. He goes toe-to-toe with this contemplation a number of times throughout the 14-track record, most bluntly perhaps in a song titled 911 Mr. Lonely, released as a single before the album alongside the hard-hitting Who Dat Boy.
5-car garage, full tank of the gas, but that don't mean nothing, without you shotgun in the passenger. I'm the loneliest man alive, but I keep on dancing and throw 'em off. I'm gonna run out of moves, cause I can groove to the blues. If you know any DJs, tell them to call me at 9.
He then turns around and hits us with another round of self-deprecating comedy. He continues to express his loneliness, but refers to himself as a weird-ass nigga and says he might need to go somewhere and get some bitches or something. Tyler, on the same track, even addresses the issues of bored materialism that we've been looking at thus far, with bars like,
Purchase things till I'm annoyed. These items just filling the void. Been feeling it for so long, I don't even know if it's shit I enjoy.
He even attributes his widely known outspokenness directly to his loneliness and boredom. But do you see the problem here? And what puts this attitude at odds with the likes of Lil Pump? Tyler acknowledges the problem in ways that many other hip-hop artists refuse to, but he still treats it as a problem. He's just being pretty meta about it, and as Bobby Burns pointed out recently in an insightful and remarkably well thought out, I love you Bobby, YouTube video, everything is meta now, so that's not really a huge deal. In contrast, Pump, as we discussed earlier, simply revels. Tyler brings comedy back to music, but when he opens up about his personal views on his own materialistic lifestyle, it gets dark. Pump just doesn't care. He has no void to fill. In fact, if the latest works of Juicy J, Future, Drake, and Gucci Mane represent an empty palace, Pump represents that same palace but filled to the brim with the highest excess of pleasure he can imagine. Tyler sits silently in the midst of the celebration, wishing he was elsewhere but knowing deep down that there is no escape. Across the room, Pump pours another 40, as happy as ever. Thank you for joining me here at Rattling Hi-Hats, the Hip Hop Philosophy Podcast, and I will see you guys next time.